Alright, so now we're going to move on to the spine area and set this up. So I'm going to go to show and turn my polygons off. We don't really need to see them right now, we just need to see the joints. And the way we're going to do this is by using what's called an IK spline. So we're going to create a controller that's going to go from here all the way up to that joint there. Okay, so I'm going to go to Skeleton, IK Spline Handle Tool Option Box. And the way an IK spline works is that it puts a curve inside the joints, and then by manipulating the points, I can manipulate the curve. So let me reset this, and we're going to do root on curve. We don't want to auto parent the curve, so we're going to turn that off. We do want to auto create the curve, and then we're going to have 4 divisions here. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag on the joint right above the pelvis. So there's our pelvis, let's join above it. So that gives me my base. And then I'm going to marquee up here where these joints come together. Okay, now it looks like I have an IK handle tool, which is what I do have there, but this IK handle tool doesn't allow me to move it. I go to the move tool and nothing happens. If I go to my outliner, I have my curve, which is created, and if I go and show joints off, you see that I have a curve sitting right here. Okay, turn my joints back on. Actually, I don't need to see the joints right now, so just leave them off. I'm going to hide this IK handle. Okay, I'll rename it here, Spline _ IK handle, and then I'll click on it and hit Control H to hide it. So now we just have this curve. Now, just to show you, if I go to Joints, I right-click and go to Curve Points, and I grab one of the curve points. I'm going to turn joint selection off so I can grab the curve point, and I move it. You can see how the joints are also moving. Okay, so this is our end goal, is to be able to do something like this where we can manipulate these points in order to get the joints to bend. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to show joints to turn them off, and we're going to create clusters on these so that we can control them. So I'm going to grab the bottom 2, create deformers, cluster option box. Relative is turned off. So I have one cluster. I'm going to click on the curve again, go back to control vertex. These 2 points are connected, so I'm going to grab this point, hit G to make a new cluster. Go to control vertex, click this point, G to make a new cluster. Click the curve again, control vertex, this point, G to make a new cluster. Control vertex, these 2 points, G to make a new cluster. So now I have 5 clusters on this thing right here. Here are the clusters, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what I'm going to do is, just to show you again, if I go to, I'll say show all, just so we can see this. And in the outliner, I'll just grab one of the clusters, and I'll move it. And you see how I can manipulate the spine by doing that. Okay, so that's what eventually we're going to be able to do. Okay, but it's not very effective to be doing something like that. So I'm going to turn my joints off. I'm going to turn my polygons off. I'm going to create a NURBS circle. And I'm going to make it, instead of 360, I'll make it a 180. Even though it can go all the way around, I just think it's more effective not to have it cut through the center of my guy. Okay, and then I'm going to snap it to the cluster. So I'm going to click in the center to activate all 3 axes in red, green, blue. Hold down V and middle click, and it goes right near the cluster. Then I can duplicate, snap one here, duplicate, snap one there, duplicate, snap one there, duplicate, snap one there. Okay, now this one I'm actually not going to manipulate, so I can actually delete that one. These ones I will manipulate. Okay, this one down here, the reason I'm not going to manipulate it is because this one's going to be parented to the pelvis, so I don't need to worry about that one. Alright, so I'm going to take these guys here, and I'm going to delete their history. I'm going to freeze their transforms, and then I'll rename them. This one is going to be lower mid spine. This one will be mid-spine. This one will be upper mid-spine. And this one will be upper spine. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cluster here, shift-click this curve, and then I'm going to go to Parent. I just want to make sure that my options are set to the default, which they are. Okay. I'm going to click on this cluster, click on this curve, oops, P to Parent again. Click on this cluster, click on this curve, P to Parent again. This cluster, this curve, P to Parent again. Okay? So now if I take these, and you can see if I grab this and I move it, the cluster moves and the curve moves, which is what we wanted. Good. Okay, so that's part one. Now part two of this is if I grab this on a regular person, if I were to grab one of their bones in their spine and pull it or rotate it or whatever, the rest of the spine upwards would move. Okay, kind of like you're bending from the waist. So I'm going to take this curve, shift-click this one, and parent it. This curve, shift-click that one, and parent it. This curve, shift-click that one, and parent it. This curve, I'm going to grab this cluster here and parent it. Okay, and then this cluster is going to be parented to the pelvis. Make sure my joint selection is on. There we go. Okay, so now what I have is if I click on any of these curves and I go to rotate it, you can see how all the joints above it rotate. And that's what we want. If I click on this curve and rotate it, that's what we want. If I click on this curve and rotate it, that's what we want. Now we also have the ability to move them as well. Okay, I don't adjust or advise moving them because if you look as I move this, you see how these are actually getting away from where they were attached. So it's ideal that the animator would just rotate it and not move it. So I'm going to grab these curves, go to the translates, right click, and hide them. Actually, let me go right click and lock them first, and then hide them. I'll do the same thing on the scale. Lock and hide. Okay. Now these clusters I don't want to ever really see. I just use them to create the other thing. So I'm going to say show joints off, show curves off. I'm going to grab the clusters and just hit Control H to hide them. There we go. So now we don't need to see them. Okay. So now this guy is rigged. If I go to show curves, which they are on, you just can't see them. Let me go to show polygons. Let me hit, oh, right. No. Somehow I hit those things. Let me go to show curves, show joints, just grab the clusters. Alright, somehow I'm getting all those. Oh, because this guy's parented that bottom one. Okay, right. Alright, so I'm going to grab polygons, joints, and curves. I'm going to grab these clusters except for this bottom one here, and then I'll hide those. There we go. And then I have a cluster that's sitting in the middle here. We just won't worry about that because no one's going to really see it. Okay. Now, in this, if I were to grab the pelvis and rotate it, it rotates the whole body. That's what we would expect to happen. Now we could also grab this joint and rotate it and get the ability to do that as well. We also have this joint we can grab and rotate and do that adjustment as well too. And we have this joint up here, which we could also grab and rotate this one and move this as well. Okay. So there's the ones for the spine. Now I also want to create one for the pelvis here too that I can grab and control. So I'm just going to create another circle here And I'll snap it to the pelvis if I can zoom in and grab it. I think I got it on there, good. Okay, so there's the pelvis control. So I'm just going to take the pelvis, shift click this, and hit P to parent it. So now if I grab that, I can rotate it around, I can move it up and down. Now I did forget one thing. I need to hit undo to go back before I did that. Freeze the transform, delete the history, rename it. There we go. And now click the pelvis, shift click my curve, and hit P to parent it. Perfect. Okay. So now we're starting to get some stuff inside here that's, we're using. Some of this stuff, like this curve here and this, we're not going to use this. So I'm just going to start grouping these things into do not touch. Okay. Because the stuff that's in here is stuff that we don't want anyone to touch. And if there's anything else that we may not want someone to touch, we can just drop it inside there. Okay. All right, so that's pretty good. Now the next thing, we have this curve on the bottom that we use to create the controls for all the lights. Obviously I didn't do that on mine yet, but that's what we would have. Now this can also be used as a control to move our entire robot. So what we want to do is we want to grab certain controls and put them in here into this controller and parent them in here so we can move them with this entire robot. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all the controls that aren't already parented in. Okay, and what I mean by that is if I grab my pelvis control and I were to move it, you can see how this control is going with it, this control is going with it. Okay, my hand control, zoom in, my hand control here is not going with it, neither is the LH, and my foot control here is not going with it. Okay, so anything that's not already parented to the pelvis or parented somewhere in the structure, I want to grab that. So I'm going to grab the wrist, I'm going to grab this guy, I'm going to grab this pelvis control, I'm going to shift click this at the end and hit P to parent. And hopefully it won't freak out. It doesn't look like it did. Okay, so now I can grab this and move my entire robot around wherever I need to. Okay, so I can move it over here, I can move it this way, oops, whatever. And I can't scale it. That's one of the things that you won't be able to do with these, just because of how our controls are set up on this. They won't allow us to scale it and keep all the stuff exactly where it was. Okay, so now this is good. We have a control where we can move the entire thing like this, or we can grab his foot and move his foot forward, and then we'll be able to grab his pelvis and move his pelvis forward, or whatever. Okay, so that's good there. Now we just have a couple other areas that we can adjust. So anywhere you see that you might want to control, add the control in there. So for like this, we would want some sort of control that we could do that. Okay, so that's going to be dealer's choice, whatever you want to put there. And use some of the different controls that we've done. We've done set driven, we've done expressions, we've done simple parenting. That's a possibility too. Now you can't parent a joint. That's the only thing. If I were to create a circle here, just for showing, and I put the circle right on that joint, I think it's there. Let's just pretend that that's our collarbone. I'll freeze the transforms, I'll delete the history, and call it collarbone. If I were to go in here and grab the joint and shift click this and parent it, you'll see that this will work. I can do that, but now when I grab the pelvis, that joint's not going to come with it. Okay, that's why in this case we would want to do something like a parent constraint. Grab this, shift click the joint, and go to constrain parent, because it doesn't actually unparent anything in the list. Okay, I can still grab this and move it. I will be able to move it in a second. And I can still grab this and rotate that. Okay. So the way that I get this thing to be able to move with it also is that I have to make sure that this joint here is parented to that. So now I grab this, I rotate, and there it goes. Okay. And all my other controls should also still work, and they do. And by grabbing the bottom circle, I can still grab this and move it around, and everything is working splendidly. Okay, so anywhere you see that you may want to have another control, add that control in there. We currently don't have one for the head as well. We don't have something if we wanted to grab the head and rotate him to look this way or that way or whatever way. We don't have that control. Okay, so we may want to add a control in here so that we can do that kind of movement. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that should be it. Controls there, controls here. Yep, that should be it. Okay, but if you see anything else, then obviously put that in there and add it to our list of things. When you're done, you may have stuff like this that's just sitting around. These are our knee tubes that I have here. These guys, if you remember, we put clusters on them for the elbows, and those clusters were parented into the joints. So these guys would most likely be inside this do not touch group, because I don't want anyone to touch it. This left knee control, I may want in the do not touch group as well. Not in the do not touch group. This will be an animation control. That'll be just left alone. There's the elbow control right here. Here's a sphere that I used for... Oh, that's my grabbing sphere. So maybe I'll throw that in the do not touch group as well too. Okay. So that'll be the end of our rigging for this guy, is doing the spine and then just going back and doing any little touch-up things. Now, just as a extra thing that's in here, if you play with this thing on the arm, and we do a really low-res rendering of this, even lower. Okay, you see how we have these bars that are showing up in the arm? This thing here is animated. So if I pull this down, let's say halfway, we render this again, we should get like a half bar fill up here. Okay, so this is another thing that you could animate also coming up on this arm. Okay, so you could have that rig too. So as the robot's starting up, you could have that thing coming up as well. It's not part of it that you have to have that. Okay, that's why I made it just an optional thing. The other arm doesn't have that. If you wanted to have that, you would just duplicate the shader for this guy and assign it to that one and move that shader over there. Again, that's just an optional thing, just something else to make it kind of look extra cool. Okay, that's going to be the end of our rigging portion, and then the next part is we're going to move into actually getting this guy to animate a little bit.